Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of In the Corners. This week we got 3 BCIHL games to go over and a little bit of hype for this Friday. Finally, where the Vikes come home for the home opener for the BCIHL season, and it's exciting times. So we got up to 3 games over the weekend. On Friday, October 14th, the Mariners faced off in the SFU's Red Leaf Barn. They went over there, land for that one, and they went into overtime. So we'll go into details on that. And then on the Saturday, we watched the Logan Lake Miners face off against the Red Leafs, and we watched the Mariners face off against the Lakers of Okanagan. So we got 3 games to go over. Matt, how you doing today?
Reese, I'm doing well. Good to be with you here. We're taping in the morning, bright and early. We got up, we got in our calisthenics, our yoga, our healthy protein oatmeal, and we're ready to get in the corners. This is a good occasion for us, a home opener game, right? We've been looking forward to this. I've been looking forward to this since we were down there for the exhibition.
Exactly.
So I can't wait to see you down there on the Vikes and to get into it, get in the corners about the BCIHL.
Yeah. It's exciting times, obviously we've been waiting for this, and, just with the results that we've seen around the league, it's gonna, prepare us for an interesting bout. So right off the bat, Matt, won't you break down the 5-4 overtime win for the SFU Red Leafs? What went down?
Hey, well, before we get into that Vikes home opener, we got to talk about this game. This is a classic game. Like this is a 5-4 win for the Red Leafs in overtime. These guys are fighting for first place along with the Lakers a little bit, but this game was so exciting. A shout out to these two teams. What happened down there was the Red Leafs got out to a 4-0 lead, and there at 2-0 there was a disallowed goal from Dunlop from the Mariners. A couple power play goals for the Red Leafs made it 4-0. At the end of the second period, Dunlop scored. It made it 4-1, and they go into the third period. And then all of a sudden, the Mariners start to crawl back in. It was the thing that made it dramatic was the disallowed goals, but also there was a broken stick that Palmer, that the Red Leafs defenseman was coming back into a zone to make a pass up, and the stick broke, and Palmer just grabbed it and shot it in.
Wow.
There was just some funny, dramatic things that happened in the game. And the Mariners took advantage of that. They tied the game and went to overtime. Nicely done by the Red Leafs. They scored in overtime there. It's indicative of, it's foreshadowing that this is going to be a really good rivalry this season.
Yes.
And also, the BCIHL is providing some really good action.
Yes.
Like we're going to see some good stuff. Yeah, exactly. Some games will be lopsided and that happens, but a lot of the play has a lot of juice to it, has a lot of drama and just kind of interesting events. So I want to say a shout out to those guys for an awesome game. We'll have an interview later with the SFU play-by-play person, which we'll talk about.
Yes.
But that's a wrap up of what happened there. Red Leafs taking an overtime against the Mariners.
Well, yeah, they get that 4-1 lead in the second, and then, Mariners come knocking at the door, almost tying it up, but then SFU stays strong. But a little bit of different scenes coming in on the next day. For the Saturday, October 15th games, we saw a 5-0 win for the Mariners and an 8-0 win for SFU. So, contrary to what you just said, we had some good action to follow, but this was a little bit on the blowout side, more reminiscent of last year's season. But it was, they're both huge wins for both teams. Of course, Mariners going into the Okanagan and just putting their foot down and getting that 5-0 win. I didn't see what the box score was, so I don't know how the shots were on that one. But I know for the SFU one, the shots were very one-sided. There was a lot of shots in that game.
Got it.
Yeah, Logan Lake being a new team, they're going to take some time to get used to it, and they're going to run into games like this. So it's kind of all about how they bounce back after this, because, it could lead into a season of disappointment if they, kind of demoralize themselves this early on in the season and then don't give themselves any room to improve for the next couple of games. So I'm sure that's not how it'll go. I'm sure the Lakers have their own, the Miners have their own, ideas and, what exactly is holding them back from performing better. But, it'll be exciting to see what they do to bounce back. And the Mariners shoot themselves into that number one position in the standings. Right above the Red Leafs. Just going to pull it up here. Yeah. So in 4 games, 3-0-1, they have that one OT loss at the beginning of the season. And that's what gives them that 7 points in the season, where the Red Leafs, because of their loss, the regulation loss, they're 3-1-0. So that is going to be a tightly contended standings right off the bat. Vikes obviously up to an 0-2 start, but hopefully they can get that first win this Friday and then put themselves in a better position. But yeah, you know what? Based on our prediction, this is definitely a surprising result. What do you think, Matt? What do you think could change with these standings?
Well, I thought that was a good point you raised about the Miners kind of gelling as a team. They're an exhibition team, and that's happening across the league. Our guest, Nick Toren from the SFU broadcast, that's a big thing he pointed out too, is that the program, the teams need to gel as they go along in the season to see who can improve the most.
Right.
So we'll see what happens with that. I mean, I like one thing about the Mariners is they have this reputation of being kind of the rough team.
Yes.
And I wonder if I think maybe that's not totally true, or we might be judging them in the wrong way. They got a lot of speed.
Right.
Their goalie Crawl, it was 4-0. When it was 4-0 for the Red Leafs and they could have packed it in, Crawl made some big saves. I'm just kind of throwing out some things that I saw here.
It is huge, right? Because having those saves come in at that point, right, just gives that a little bit of moral support after feeling like, oh, this is a little bit of a blowout. We don't have a chance, but you see your goalie make some saves. Well, next thing you know, fast forward to the third period, it's a tie game, right? So
yeah, it's like these performances can help gel the team. Maybe with the Vikes too. Something we can look forward to is like, who's going to kind of step up and get things going on the right foot.
Right.
It's just totally a team game, right? Everyone flows together and the puck gets passed around, and but sometimes leadership is really needed to keep your team in it, or
exactly
get a big play. So that's one thing we're going to be watching for the Vikes. 3 bean fates for Crawl for the overtime loss there. One thing with the Red Leafs, that game 8-0 against the Miners.
Yep.
I looked at the box score. They didn't have anyone score 2 goals. So it looked like it was eight 1-goal games. That was kind of interesting. Lakers played
their depth.
Yeah, the Lakers played a new goalie named Jaden Little. They had a bit of a parade to the penalty box.
Oh, okay.
So, the Lakers will be back. No big deal.
Yes.
They'll be back. They're going to be a good one. So
yes,
lots going on in the BCIHL. We're digging it.
So this is all just a precursor for the most exciting time, which is this weekend. Finally get to see the Vikes face off at home, see what they're made of. Going back to their first 2 games, obviously not the result they're looking for, but like we've been kind of going on about with the Miners, is you take your losses and you see what you can do to improve on them. So that, because there isn't the most amount of games, but it is a long season, right? So there is a lot of wins that you could sneak out of the season, which give you a much better standing position, which thus obviously puts you in a better position for the playoffs. But obviously very early to be talking about that. And before we get to future tense, would you want to introduce this new game that you have? It seems like you got a new one every week. It's pretty great.
Well, here's the idea this week, Reese. In the corners, one-timers. Okay, so then I'm gonna do some passes over to you, and you're gonna see if you can slam these one-timers home for a goal. These are just 3 quick thoughts we have about the upcoming week for the Vikes. So not necessarily a game, but I'm going to be your setup man here.
Okay.
All right. I'm going to set you up here.
Let's do this.
In the corners, one-timers, 3 things to watch. One-timer number 1, the starting goalie for the Vikes. This is something I know you're passionate about and we've been watching closely. And further, the Vikes lineup. They're welcoming in this Red Leafs. They're the cream of the crop. They're at the top of the league.
Yep.
What are you going to be looking for the starting lineup for the Vikes or the home opener this Friday?
Well, if I'm not mistaken, they went with Pilon for both games of the season, I think, right? I'm
So
pretty
too.
sure, right? So
Yeah.
if that's the case, then, he definitely had his go at it. I think you got to throw Kirsten in. Now, I know he's a freshman. I know maybe in practice he doesn't look like he's got the same, experience or the ability under pressure like the other goalies. I'm not at their practices, so I'm not seeing that. But I think Kirsten should get a chance. I think his performance in the exhibition games were enough to tell me this guy could be a difference maker. I felt that the game that he started, I think it was the very first exhibition game of the season when he started. Um, Vikes seemed, pretty outmatched, not dominated, but outmatched. They seemed like they were getting hammered by the Mariners, and Kirsten kept them confident, and that's what allowed them to get a really good game out of it. Right. So, yeah, honestly, I think Kirsten deserves the start. That's just my opinion. We'll see if that's what happens. They do have 4 goalies, right? And they have guys who are older than, freshman Kirsten. So I'm sure he's also,
Yeah.
knowing he's a freshman, the coaches know that this guy could play for the next 4 years, right? So maybe not hammer him in to big games this early, which is also logical. I can see the reasoning behind that. But to me, I think when you're introducing your fans at home to the season and you're already 0-2, I think you got to put the best guy in the net. And I think it's time for Kirsten to get his course ran. I think he deserves the pressure. I think they should throw him into the mix right away. And yeah, I think that's the decision you got to make.
Awesome. Reese is you're looking for whatever gives you the best chance on Friday night. You got to go with it.
And I could be wrong, right? They
Love
could start
it.
Kirsten and then it could be 9-0 after the first period. You never know. But I believe that the kid is coming into the season with lots of confidence. I think he's a good athlete. And and that has nothing to go,
sure.
nothing against Pete Law. I'm sure, if we're being honest, it wasn't just his fault as to the results for the first 2 regular season games. More of a team thing, but I do think they should change it up. I think for the sake of, Pilon as well, right? You had 2 bad games. You want to get thrown into the mix for this one, maybe take a seat back, go back to the drawing board, get your confidence back up, maybe grab a win this Friday or grab an OT loss or something. Then they can play him the next game. Because he is their veteran guy that they're going to want to rely on, right? So yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Nice. In the Vikes lineup, the defensive pairings, we've seen some things shift around. A good, and then up front, a good mix of the returning leaders and the young players. Yes. We're going to be watching who draws in there and makes an impact. Any more one-timers to do with the lineup, Reese?
No, I think the lineup that they iced for the first 2 games was decent. I definitely want Gattenby up there on the first D pairing. I think that's his spot. I think he's that. Although they have lots of depth, they do need to find their best chemistry and their best performers. And we know that Braun and Kelly and these guys, they're freshmen, but they're ready to play and they're already putting points up. So I think you need to. I think they need to step away a little bit from the, making the lines based off of, senior and veteran leadership.
Right.
It's, if you look at the lineup, right, it looks like it's like fresh. It's like senior, and then it's like freshman, sophomore, senior, and then it kind of
right. It is kind of like that, hey?
Yeah. So I don't know if there's a reasoning behind that or if that's just how they want to run the lines. But I think if you know that Riley Braun is having a good time, he's now on the 4th line. I mean, he's now on the 1st line, right? You want to move these guys up so that they know, like, if you're a player and you're typically on the 1st line, if you're Hermary and you have 2 bad games, which not saying that he did, but if you had 2 bad games, you should kind of have a little bit of a fear that there's competitiveness in the roster and that you're going to lose some minutes on the ice. So if they don't have that competitiveness, you kind of feel a little stagnant in the lines that you have. And, just looking at any of the just looking at the team stats for the Vikes in the only 2 games that they played, a lot of those veterans aren't scorers right now, and it's the freshmen. So if we know that there's an offensive advantage with our freshmen, then let's build our lines based on that.
That will be cool point. That'll be good to see this season, because Braun, is someone that you're watching out for.
Yeah.
The puck, he knows where it's going.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't seem like it, but then he's got on a string and he scores a lot.
He's very good.
Hermary and Bentham and these guys are hungry for the puck too.
Yes.
So they're more like they go and eat the puck,
Right.
But so we'll see how the different skills, like you say, match up along as the season goes along.
Exactly.
Yeah. Wow, man, that's a good one-timers right there. Okay, the second one-timer is, let's take a little look at SFU. They got a few shooters here. Wicks seems like an offensive leader. He's scoring a bunch.
No, yeah.
Cross, I think, is a defenseman. Now these guys have got Wicks has 8 points already. Cross has 7. And then Parkhouse is kind of like their big fourth liner. It's a good name for him because he's just, he parks the house by the goal, kind of is his thing.
Right.
So, I like the literal, things like that. So shout out to Parkhouse. What do you think about SFU coming in? How are the defensemen? How are we going to stop these skilled SFU players?
Yeah, so they gotta get a little bit rough around the edges. This SFU team won the league with demand. They won it clearly last year. So knowing that they have a lineup that is high flying, quick, skilled, strong. So you got to get a little dirty. You got to get a little Barnhouse. You got to get a little Saskatchewan. You got to get outside of playing their game. You got to start slashing. You got to start talking. You got to start when you see Wicks, come flying through the wing. Well, now you don't even look at the puck and you go for him. Even if the hit doesn't go off properly, it's the principle of, we know that you guys are skilled, but we're going to outwork you and we're going to make this really hard for you to have an easy game. And, they could even still get slammed 4-0, but it is a message if the Vikes come in and they hit a lot and they don't let anybody sit out front of the net. And, they show that they'd rather go contact instead of the puck. They show that this is the type of team that you're going to have to face off against. It's going to create a little bit more wariness of the team because, looking at the standings and just going based off of what we've seen already, it's not like the Vikes are scaring anyone. It's just the way it is. Right. But obviously super early in the season. So many things can change and that whole narrative can be thrown out the window. But, I just think the best thing that they could do is play rough, play hard. You're going to have to work all 3 periods because this team's got depth and they've got experience. So you can't sit back at any point. Kirsten in goal, and you give them a different look and you focus on getting in their head a little bit because you got to get them off their game. Their game is very strong.
Yeah, SFU hosted the Vikes, had us beat down a 10-2. They won the whole thing last year, didn't even lose a game. The SFU, Nick Toren, the play-by-play announcer, said that was like the best team in BCIHL history. So that was interesting. But this is the Vikes home opener. They want to assert themselves and say, hey, not so fast, guys. Like, we're just like you're saying, we're going to play with some urgency in your face, and you're not going to run away with the league on us that so easy.
Yes.
So for that reason, let's go to our third one-timer. Let's talk about a Vikes. Let's identify a Vikes veteran player that could lead the team and that we're going to be looking for on Friday night. Over to you, Reese. One-timer.
Okay, right off the bat, this will be a quick one. This will be a Cole Caulfield at the left side, to tie it to against the Pittsburgh Penguins. Dan Gattenby has to be that guy for me. He was a WHL guy. He's great two-way, amazing offensively, in my opinion. I think he moves the puck great, but he's solid two-way. He's not dumb on the puck. He's not stupid on the boards. He's not taking dumb penalties. He's smart. He uses his body. Reminds me a lot of Shea Weber in a way where he's efficient in the movement he makes, but he's also not a baby. Like he's not this modern D-man where they just Cale Makar everything. Well, Cale Makar, I mean, he's got that physicality. That's what makes him the best. But it's not like this, I'm just going to fly through the ice and, pass here, pass that. No, he knows that there's fundamentals of the game. You got to be rough and tough. You got to be in people's faces. And I think he's, for the last season, before this and for the preseason and from what I've seen so far, he's still got it in him. And I think he's ready to explode. Honestly, if there's anything I'd like to say, like Withy, Hermer, and Pickett, I think they're getting put in a little bit of a tough position right now. When the team doesn't perform well, it usually goes on the heads of the veterans. which I definitely want to take away. It's a team thing, and it's a collective thing. It's a product of a lack in all areas. So, but in that being said, I think that they should have a much better game. I hope that they can
Yep.
get under their feet a little bit better and show up more and give put a pile of pressure on when they're on the ice, and then the second Braun and Kelly and these really skilled freshmen come on the ice, they're on the ice against a tired line, right? Because the
Yeah.
veterans came in there and battered them, and you make a switch, and next thing you know, you got a full tank energy, prime of their life athlete, freshman coming on with some great skill, and yeah, they can get some goals that way. So yeah, I hope Gattenby can find his game a little bit, get that chemistry going with whoever he's with, and kind of feel his game like he did last year, and that'll give them a huge advantage because he's a guy that is noticed by the rest of the league, right? So yeah.
Right. Captain Gattenby, in our interview with Dustin DeGo, Gattenby, he's kind of identified as the Captain Serious. He wants to get things done, get down to business out there. They want to have a good showing here, So I think that's a good pick. They're going to look to the leader. For the same reason, I'm going to look at Hermary. We don't have the starting lineups. Things can change, right?
Yes.
Things can, and people are getting colds and stuff these days, as we all know, and people can't play. But I'm going to look, I'll just say Hermary. I like him for his size and speed and going down there to get the puck. My whole thing with SFU is they're not going to give it to you. You have to go get it. Right. Yes. They're not. And the SFU, they don't seem like they're going to trip you, and they're not going to give you power plays and stuff, I don't think.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I'm going to look at Hermary to kind of initiate the Vikes having the puck in the SFU zone. Right. I'll be watching for that. And of course, Connor Nolan from the last time with SFU, the younger player. We'll just say it another time, or we'll keep saying it. He's going to rip some goals in. So we'll watch for him. We're big fans of these Vikes.
We are.
That's some good one-timers. How you feeling about that?
I like it. I like these. I like these games. We gotta repeat a couple of them for sure, because they're definitely they add a nice consistency to the episodes. Something to look forward to when you tune in.
Exactly. Our lines are just we're moving our lines around, getting some gel going, getting some team chemistry.
Yeah. Well, honestly, there's nothing else to go over but the excitement that we have for this game, right? So we know that SFU is going to come in. They're going to want to come out flying. They're second in the league, only 1 point behind the league leader, which is the Mariners, just due to an OT loss. So obviously SFU is going to come in and want to make a dominant, win another 10-2 game. And I'm excited to prove that wrong. I'm excited to see the Vikes surprise people and surprise the league and show up with a great game. And I definitely think they can do it. And I'm looking forward to tons of things. I'm looking forward to who they're going to pick in net, who they're going to start with their defensive lineup. I'm sure it will remain generally the same, but I hope they mix up the lines just a little bit. Not to destroy chemistry, but to just give a little bit of a different look. And what about you, Matt?
Well, they've had a couple weeks to practice now. It's just occurring to me that the Vikes are pretty fast, and hockey is for having fun too. Right. Maybe they just go and get some speed going and have some fun. It's your home opener. Your buddies are going to be there. We're going to be on hockey TV, breaking it down. Yep. Have some fun and let your hair flow in the wind and get the skates going. Skating is pretty fun. I haven't skated in 10 years because I'm a washed up guitar player now that doesn't know how to skate. But they, the Vikes are going to be looking to have fun too. Very lucky to be down there talking about hockey and playing hockey. The result, of course, we want the wins in the standings, but it's just about sending a message that we're here, that they're there to play, showing off your skill. And because one thing we talked about in the interview coming up here is the Vikes, they'll be fighting, but they'll likely be in the playoffs. Yes. And if they can ride a hot streak into the playoffs, anything can happen. I'm a baseball fan. You got the Phillies and the Padres and the CS. Yeah. Things just happen if you get hot at the right time.
Yeah, and then some
So,
things that happen that are completely expected, such as the Blue Jays blowing it like they do, like every Toronto team does.
oh,
Yeah,
oh man, I'm not super over
shame.
that yet. I could not root for the Mariners. Reese, that
Why'd
was a
you
low
switch
blow.
the pitcher? He was doing great. Why'd you switch
Reese,
him?
oh Reese, that was a 2 minutes for spearing for you because that really hurt.
Yeah, yeah,
I
that
am a
is a
Blue
tough
Jays
one.
fan, but you're right. It was.
It's just
I'm still
shameful coaching. It
speechless.
seemed. It seemed
Still
like
speechless.
shameful coaching. I don't know
Yeah.
baseball very well, but all I can tell you is based on people's reaction, it was a coaching, it was a staff decision that kind of led to their loss. I don't know. What do you think? Just a quick for all the Blue Jays fans out there.
It's just momentum, like going back to the Vikes. Remember the Vikes against SFU? It's 2-2.
Yeah.
SFU started scoring some goals in that game, and it just gets out of hand. And
Yes.
it's just like you wake up in the morning, you stub your toe, you hit your head on
Right.
the car door,
Scrambling.
your car won't start, you run it, you back into a parking meter like I did with my car. It's just things pile up.
Yeah. Yep.
It's real. It takes a lot of fortitude and like will to be like, okay, this is gonna stop, and we're stopping the door on these guys, like on the Seattle Mariners or the SFU Red Leafs for the
Yep.
Jays and the Vikes. We're gonna
Right.
stop this now, and we're gonna have some fun scoring too. So
Yeah.
that's a trick. We'll see if the Vikes can weather the storm, because they're gonna have them. The Red Leafs
Oh,
are
yeah.
a good team.
They are.
They're experienced program. Um, Man, you like how I avoid all the Blue Jays talk? I'm hurting still.
It's a sad one, that's the thing about me though, as a Habs fan who have seen lots of disappointment in other forms. I'm passionate in ripping them apart. I've just been a negative fan. Like even during when times were good, I was negative. Like
Yeah.
when they went to the Stanley Cup final, I could smell they didn't have the roster to just deal with good teams. And, I knew that they were more than capable of playing against teams that they matched up well against, such as the Leafs, because they don't have any second gear and no grit. And then the Vegas.
Love it.
Yeah. And Winnipeg, who is just simply not fast enough. And they were too defensive and not enough depth, especially when they lost Shifley. And then Vegas, because they, again, slower, great power play, great, strong defensive team, but we were faster and we worked harder. And that's how you get the win. But
Winnipeg.
Right. And when you play against a team like Tampa, who's up and down stacked and every area has great depth, they lost in 5. There's no competition. It wasn't even close. It was right. So, kind of to connect that with this, it's just like at some point you need to find a way to shatter the expectations or shatter the analysis, because if you don't, then you're just going to be a statistic that people predict at the beginning of the season. Like, no, they're not going to be good. Right.
Oh, so. I love that, Reese. Shatter the analysis. Yes. That's a good name for our metal band, for our play-by-play team. Yeah. I love the shot. Now when you're talking about the Canadians on that hockey run, this is a bit of a tangent, but was the Jets, the Golden Knights, and the Leafs that left a trail of damage, hey, in those groups,
organizations,
like losing to the Habs that year.
Yeah.
So, the losses. That's not the case here with the Vikes. That was the first game of the year.
Right.
They're going to have their shot, and it's going to be fun to see them. We haven't had a home game in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
See the yellow or the white and yellow, whatever jerseys they have flying around there.
It'll be exciting.
We'll have the music cranked.
Yep, music cranked. Yeah, it'll be good. Honestly, not much to say other than I guess we'll pass it on into that nice interview you did yesterday. I've been, slinging Halloween costumes. I've been slinging fake blood for a couple of days here. So, it's been taking up my time. Yeah. But, this Friday will be good to get in depth with the team. And so an exciting week in the BCIHL, especially due to last week's results, pertaining to how this week is going to pan out. So,
for sure. Today's guest interview is Nick Toren, SFU play-by-play announcer. I wanted to say, when I was, just a quick story, when I was a kid, I used to listen to the Estevan radio station in southern Saskatchewan, and they did the Estevan Bruins. That's SJHL, and they did some other
Okay.
senior hockey. And I would listen all the time when I was 7 years old or whatever.
Nice.
And there was a guy there that worked for the radio station 1280 CJSL, and his name was Lyle McGilvery. He was like the
That's a Irish name.
that's the Esteban radio handle of that. And he was always on the radio talking about the games. And he would he would do things like go down to the Dodge dealership and have like raffles and hot dog days and stuff like that.
Right.
And he was famous to me and loved hearing them. Nick Toren has a bit of that going on. And so
Okay.
that was cool to have Nick on, because he's doing that right now, working at radio stations, and he's pulling back the curtain a bit on SFU. So I hope the interview, hope you like it, hope you dig it. A little bit about Nick's broadcast journey and about this year's SFU Red Leafs.
Yeah, good insight into the team and lots of experience behind his ears. So,
Yeah.
there's lots of information and viewpoints that we wouldn't have seen otherwise. So we'll toss it right over to that interview. I'd like to thank you all for tuning in to this week's episode of In the Corners. Next week will be an exciting one because we'll be right before the action. We'll have a very deep analysis as we are doing the play-by-play, and it'll be exciting times to go through these weeks and get closer and closer to that tournament that we are hosting at the ENH Sport Stewart Complex. I think that's in February or January. So that is going to be an exciting time, kind of a build up to that. We're going to have tons of analysis. We might even need to run the podcast there at the game just because we'll be doing it in between games. Right. So exciting times. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I've been Reese Savoy with the UVic broadcast team, and this is Matt Good. Thanks so much for tuning in again. And yeah, here's Nick with the interview that him and Matt had.
All right. Hi, folks. Hey, out there, everyone. Welcome to a special segment of In the Corners. I'm Matt. Here today, we have a special guest, the voice of the Red Leafs. All right, the play-by-play voice, Nick Toren is here. How you doing, Nick?
Not bad, man. How you doing?
Good. Everybody give a round of applause for Nick. And if you're driving, say hello. Good to see you. Thanks for coming on the show. We are getting into all things BCIHL. And things are going good.
We love it.
So you've had some pretty amazing calls so far, but I kind of wanted to start the interview with how you got into play-by-play and how you got into hockey.
It's not that great of a story, to be honest. I mean, I've always loved sports. I grew up watching sports and watching the Canucks, watching whatever sport I could watch. I always liked playing hockey, and I never played ice hockey like on a team. Who wants to wake up at 5 a.m. and practice, right? That didn't sound enticing to me, so I didn't. But I always loved the game, and I watched it for a long time. And I wanted to get into broadcasting after high school, and I always wanted to do play-by-play because, as your kid, you're commentating yourself, playing those games and stuff like that. And I just thought, hey, that's a great idea. It sounds so fun. What are you watching sports and talking about it to get paid for it? It just sounds perfect. And so I went in, and before I even got to broadcasting school, actually, I was SFU was looking for a guy, and I was like, I have nothing, but would you hire me? they're like I was gonna do it for free, man, and they're just like, yeah, how does this much sound? I was like, all right, sure, I'll do it. And here we are. I mean, and then I went to school and everything for broadcasting, but
oh, nice.
I stuck around for SFU, and that was a good time. BCI is great hockey.
Yeah, Nick, were you a student at SFU when you started broadcasting?
No, not at all. Not in the slightest. I've never gone to SFU. I never went there. I never did anything, but I have so many ties to SFU, and I don't know, man.
Where did you go to broadcasting school?
BCIT, so British Columbia Institute of Technology out in Burnaby there. I took like the radio program, so we learned about radio and stuff like that. And yeah, it's working right now. I work at a couple radio stations. I mean, not full-time freelance stuff. It's not, media is not fun right now, but
What kind of
It's all
stuff
right.
what kind of stuff are you doing at the radio stations?
I do more producing, like behind the scenes stuff. So
Oh,
you
cool.
don't hear me. You don't maybe you see me. You'll see me if we're on, like location, like we're doing a remote. I'm the guy that's making sure everything's going. That's what I
Oh,
do.
nice. You're
Yeah.
down there at the Toyota-thon,
Yeah.
the May Toyota-thon here. Everybody come and jump in the
Yeah.
ball pit.
Yeah. Get your red tag Toyota. Yeah. Yeah. No, yeah.
That's
Pretty
great.
much exactly. It's exactly it.
Man, I got to feel a lot of similarities with your story. So do you have any favorite broadcasters currently or like back in the day?
Well, I mean, Chris Cuthbert, number one. I mean, I've
Yeah,
been watching that guy forever because he did the CFL as well when he was with TSN, and my family's a huge
right.
CFL family, so I watched him for years doing football. But then obviously growing up Canucks fan, Jim Houston, obviously. I was a little past Jim Robson.
Okay.
That's a lot of people like that's the guy, but I'm younger than that. So Jim Houston, what I grew up with, and then of course John Shorthouse and John stuff like that. But those are some of the play-by-play guys I love. Kevin Burkhardt in America, he's a really good guy. And like
Which one is
Dan.
Burkhart? Which one is
He,
Burkhart
did,
doing?
he does the NFL mostly. He's Fox's number one guy now since Joe Buck went to Monday night. But he's doing like baseball and football. He's just a good guy. Like he's got a good voice and he always does well. And Gus Johnson, if you've never heard Gus Johnson, that man is electric.
Nice.
Like if you've listened to my broadcast, you might know I get like excited sometimes and kind of yell.
Yeah.
Gus Johnson's definitely an influence on that one.
Right on. Yeah, I'm enjoying hearing your call so far. There's been some sick games. Before we get into that, did you have just a few more questions about your broadcasting experience, if you don't mind? What were some of the best advice you got about doing play-by-play?
It's I think some of the best ones I've heard was like really know what you're talking about, like get to know like the players or where they're from or just get a story behind it. It's a little hard to do that in the BCIHL just because it's not as easy to access these players or where they come from and stuff like that. I've looked it up. I know a lot of the SFU guys, so but you don't get to see the other teams that often. But it's getting to know your opponent, and over the year, you get to know them, get what they're taking. But I think that's one of the ones, like, know what you're talking about, try to learn from that. But also just like being comfortable as well, like knowing what you do well and try not to be something that you're not. Like you may see a broadcaster and you're like, oh man, I want to sound like that guy. It's like, why do you want to sound like that guy? Why not sound like you? Be you, create something different, be different. Which I like to think I am. I don't know if I but yeah, those are
beautiful.
Probably a couple things that I try to live by anyway.
Man, I love that advice. That's great. Well, I've been enjoying your call. Why don't we is this your 5th season calling, being the voice of the Red Leafs, or 6?
I think this is my 8th.
Is it 8th?
Yeah.
Wow, that's
like
awesome.
2013, 14, somewhere in that ballpark.
Do you have a favorite memory of the Red Leafs from over the years? Like a favorite game?
Okay, game, yes. That was a couple of years ago. It was 2019, I believe, and they had a game against Trinity Western when they were in the league. And Trinity Western was like undefeated unto this point, and it was just SFU all played them hard. That Surrey and Burnaby thing, and they were up like 4-0, and they just collapsed. And it was like just such a back and forth game in the third period. And it wasn't like a quick collapse. It was like, they scored. And then it was like 8 minutes left. They scored. And then they scored with like a minute left. And I have the call somewhere, but it was in overtime. It went all the way to overtime. And the goaltender, who's actually back on the team, Andrew Henderson, there was a play, it was Braden Brown. He came out in front of the net and he was basically on his stomach, and he reached up his glove and like made the save, and I lost it. Just
amazing.
Lost it. I was just like, I'm screaming at this point. Like there were the people in the penalty box, because where we where we broadcast from, like it's not that far. Bill Coleman's not huge, but the penalty box people were there. They can't always hear me. That one, like a guy came up to me, he's like, I could hear you loud and clear. That was crazy. So that's probably one of my favorite calls, just because I lost it. It was just kind of like in the moment. I lost, like it wasn't intentional.
Awesome.
It was just like, holy crap, what is happening right now? But
that was a
obviously,
save in overtime. A save in overtime.
It was over. If I can find it, I'll send it to you. It was a wild save, but yeah, and then but probably like last year, you know, they went undefeated. They won the championship after all these years of me broadcasting. It was just kind of a nice experience to actually see the team that I've covered for so many years actually go over the hill.
Oh yeah, nice. That was the first championship that you got to call.
Yeah, they hadn't won since
right
2011. Yeah,
that's great. Well, the game you're describing kind of reminded me of the game we saw on Friday night. Want to get into this year's version of the Red Leafs a little bit?
I would. Yeah, that was as I was talking about that, I'm like, that's exactly what happened on Friday night.
Yeah, SFU was up 4-0. The Mariners claw back in and force overtime. What do you make of this matchup between these teams? They've had a couple good games so far, and the Mariners are kind of coming after the Red Leafs this year, it looks like.
Well, obviously they played last year in the final. And SFU was that much better. Like, no knock against VIU last year, but they were that much. SFU was the class. Like, it was not close. They were one of the best teams in the league, period, ever. So I think this year, I think VIU came out like they wanted to prove like they're our best team. And I thought they were losing a lot more players than they were going to. Like, I was like, oh, this guy's probably gone. This guy's probably gone. They only lost like 2 players from last year.
Okay.
So they like 2 really noticeable players, like notable who made a difference last year. But I'd almost say this team's better. They're faster. They're not quite. Last year they were kind of like throw your body around, just hit you, like out physical you. But this team I think is a little faster, a little more skilled. But that VOU team's good. And this year I think they're showing like we're better than we were last year. And I think SFU, they started a little slow because, you know, during the preseason, they beat the University of Alaska Anchorage, which was first time ever an NCAA. They've beaten an NCAA team. They beat Trinity Western, a U Sports team. So, you know, these are high caliber teams.
Yeah.
And, you know, the SFU beat them. So I think coming back into the BCIHL, they were thinking like, hey, if we can do that, we can do anything. And, you know, I think it was just kind of like they came out a little flat on the first game. I still thought they could have won. Like if they started slow in the first game and then came back. They didn't quite complete the comeback, but I think in the game on Friday, they just started, you know, they started fast. They did what they needed to do, but then as the game went on, it just kind of got a little slower. VIU got it. There was that non-call on Garrett Dunlop's goal.
Yeah.
That
broken stick.
The broken stick. Yeah. It was just kind of like, it was unlucky. And then it was like, oh, okay. You know, also that first game had Brock Palmer score 4 goals. I mean, you're not stopping that, but, but, you know, I think that's a good game. And I think SFU knows what's coming. Like they have a game against them this week on the island. So I think this is kind of the rubber match to see, but if SFU doesn't know what they have in VIU, they're going to have to learn pretty quick, because I think VIU could easily be the class of the league if they want to be.
I love it. Yeah. How do you think the Red Leafs match up against other teams in the league so far?
Well, they've played pretty much every team, I guess, at this point.
Yeah.
Okanagan's better than they were last year. Obviously, they were an expansion team last year. Still not on the level of SFU. But they got some good talent on that team. They get a good hockey factory a bit from the KIJHL up in the Kootenays there. Logan Lake is obviously an expansion team. That's tough for any sport, period. But you know, like I think a lot of especially in the BCIHL, it's knowing your teammates, like really bonding with them. And I think having that chemistry and that glue is really key in this league. And it's something that I think SVU's done really well on. I think VIU has a lot of it as well. It's something you need. And I think for Logan Lake, it's going to take some time. You know, I looked at their lineup. I've looked at those players. They there are some players that have come from pretty prestigious places. So it's not like they don't have the talent. It's just I think they got to put it together. UVic, I thought is going to be better this year. I really like Alec Dillon as a coach. I don't think that 10-2 game against SFU says what it will say at the end of the year. But again, I think that was kind of a measuring stick game for them, kind of know where they are. Be like, oh, okay, so we know where we are. We know what we have to do. Let's build upon it. I still think SFU is a better team than UVic, but I wouldn't be surprised if UVic turns it on again once they get together, figure it out. They have a lot of new guys on that team as well.
Yeah.
So I think once they figure it out, I think it could be a late season surge. UVic's making the playoffs, I think. So you never know. I mean, a few years ago, with 2016, they entered fourth and ran the table. There's lots of ways to do it. I think UVic's better than they have been this year. And again, BIU, I think they're going to battle for first, unless SFU wants to be better than them. I could easily see BIU finishing first in the BCIHL.
Well, yeah, I think the point you made about the cohesiveness of the team, or like the program in this league, is something I'm just starting to realize too. Like that's what the Vikes are saying a lot to us. Is like we like our players, our new players are sweet, we like our veterans, but we've never played together yet.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good point. And those Red Leafs are coming down to play the Vikes in Victoria this weekend.
They are, that good old arena.
Yeah, we'll be there hollering and yelling at you guys through the screen.
I'm sure.
So I'll ask a couple more things before we go, but there was one controversial thing I wanted to ask you about. A breakaway, is it called a B-way? Or is that in style? I'm new to broadcasting, right? I got to learn. Is a B-way, is that a nice is that the way to go for a breakaway?
I'm assuming you heard that on the broadcast, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah,
okay,
you had Lacasse in there, right?
I did, and
yeah.
I didn't know that was a thing. I never played hockey, and he said that. I had no idea what he said originally. I didn't know. I was kind of in my own world when he said that, so I didn't know he said it. I wasn't going to make a thing of it. I didn't know what he said, so I just moved on.
Yeah.
And then I think he wanted to clarify himself because not many people might know what a B-way is. He's like, yeah, B-way, we call it breakaway. And I was like, wait, what? You call? Okay, sure, I get it, but okay, you did okay. So yes, I'm gonna say a breakaway is a B-way. I don't think I could ever say that on a broadcast. Like I said it for a joke on that broadcast. I was like, really? But I never again. I would say he's on a breakaway sounds a lot better than he's on a B-way. Okay,
It's going straight to the bathroom.
Yeah, well, exactly. Who knows, right? Who knows?
You guys had a good gel in there. Good with your color analyst. Do you change the color analysts around all the time with the Red Leafs when you broadcast?
Not really. Lacasse actually filled in. We were supposed to have another guy. He wasn't able to make it that day. But Austin, who you probably heard most of the season so far, he's definitely one guy. We have another guy, Braden. I haven't seen him yet this year. He was the one unfortunately called in sick that one time, but I'm sure we'll get him in more. But it's usually between Austin and Braden. Both really good guys, bring insightful stuff, the numbers that I would never have. But it's a really good broadcasting team over there, like top to bottom stats, video, everything. Like it's a really good team over there.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, wishing you guys a great season over there. Reese is the play-by-play for the Vikes. He's got some, I would say he's a little bit of a younger hockey fan than I am. So he's got some of the lingo down. Maybe he'll crack open a B-way or do some. Well, I'll run some ideas over the season. It is okay if I run some slang by you to make sure I'm in touch.
Sounds good. I'll try to let you know, make sure it's good to go.
Well, I appreciate that very much. Okay, so maybe the last thing before you go, you can answer one of these two questions. The one is your favorite hockey music, or the other one is if you're going to have a dinner party with 3 hockey people, who would you want? Or you could answer them both. Favorite hockey music and favorite hockey dinner party.
Okay, I guess I could answer both. Music, definitely like rock, like Rise Against. Do you know Rise Against?
Nice. Yes, I do.
Yeah, that's like the best. Like that, I
Got a
will. I
punk
can listen to
edge
that
going
any
on.
day. Yeah, I'm down pop punk. Like I know Rise Against isn't quite pop punk, but going to that early 2000s, 2006, Fall Out Boy and Newfound Glory and all that stuff. That's the good stuff.
Love
Three
it.
people that I'd want to have dinner with in hockey. Well, Marcus Naslin's one of them for sure. Yeah, yeah. Marcus Naslin. I would just be down to sit with Marcus Naslin. But
That's awesome. That's like
yeah,
me and Ryan Smith from the Oilers.
Ryan Smith.
Ryan Smith. That'll be
Okay.
because I grew up on the prairies, right? So
okay. So an Oilers guy.
you got
Our man
Naslin.
Jake on the SFU team is Oilers guy too. But yeah, Naslin's my guy. Love Naslin. Like obsessed with that man. He's my hero.
He's coming to dinner for sure.
That's the man. And I don't know. I get Luongo would be fun to have. Luongo's a funny guy.
Yeah, let those guys bring whoever they want.
I think that would be funny. And yeah. Can the Sedins count as one person?
Sure.
There you go. That's
great.
Ultimate one. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Nick. Thank you, everybody listening there for this segment of In the Corners, the voice of the Red Leafs, award-winning broadcaster. Beautiful call. That sick game with the Mariners. If you haven't seen that, go back and check it out. Check out Nick's call. And we're looking forward to tuning in this season. And this weekend, the home opener, SFU and the Vikes. So we'll check it out. Thank you very much, Nick, for schooling me a bit, coming and dropping some knowledge on us about the Red Leafs. Can't wait to see what happens this season.
Yeah, no worries, man. Thanks. Have a good season. Have a good call on Saturday, the home opener. Let's have a good one, man. It's going to be fun.
Thanks, Nick. Catch you later.